There we go. Okay. Grrr, zap! The arrow, the sharp arrow. The sharp arrowhead bit through his hat and carried it off. On and on for a full half-mile. Grrr, zap! That's not a good grrr, zap. Grrr, zap! It plunked to a stop in the heart of an oak tree, yet there on Bartholomew's head sat another hat. The face of the yeoman of the bowman went as white as the palace walls. "It's black magic," he shrieked. Oh, I read that wrong. "It's black magic!" he shrieked. "Black magic, that's just what it is," sighed the king with relief. "I should have thought it up before. That makes things simple. Back to the throne room. Call my magicians." The whole throne room wasn't as loud as the sound of a breath, but from the spiral stairs that led down from the southwest tower came the shuffling of slow, padded feet. The magicians were coming. Slow and low, they were chanting words that were strange. "Dig a hole, far for long Steve, down to where that makes a creep, makes a mold of mystic mud, Melver, Valor, Chisel, Tot." In came 7 black-gowned magicians, and each one stalked a lean black cat. They circled around Bartholomew Cubbins, muttering deep and mysterious sounds. "Stop this useless muttering," ordered the king. "I want a chant that will charm away this boy's hat." The magicians huddled over Bartholomew and chanted, "Wickabus, Tickabus, Fatras, Clay, hang on the demon's head, fly away. Howlman, Howlman, howl away, yell cats away. Hat on the demon's head, steep away, creep away, leap away, good boy, never come back." "A mighty good chant," said the king, looking very pleased. "Are you sure it will work?" All the magicians nodded together. "But," said the king, looking puzzled, "there still seems to be a hat upon his head. How long will it take for the charm to work?" "Be calm, O sire, and have no fears," chanted the magicians. "Our charm will work in 10 short years." 10 years, gasped the king. "Away, fools," he shouted. "Out of my sight. I can't wait 10 years to get rid of this hat. Oh dear, what can I do? What can I do?" "If I were king," whispered the Grand Duke Wilfred, "I'd chop off his head." "A dreadful thought," said the king, biting his lip. "But I'm afraid I have to." "Young man," he said to Bartholomew Cubbins, and he pointed to a small door at the end of the room, "march down those steps to the dungeon and tell the executioner to chop off your head." Bartholomew's heart sank into his boots, but he did as the king commanded. "I must take off my hat," he said to himself as he started down the long black stairway. "This is my last chance." One hat after another he tore from his head. Hold on, wait. I don't have enough props to... Alright. One after another, he tore hats from his head. He tore them. 156, 157, 158. It grew colder and damper. 217, 218, 219. Down in the very heart of the mountain. Down, down, down. 231, 232, 233. It seemed Bartholomew must be in the very heart of the mountain. "Who's there?" said a voice from the blackness. Bartholomew turned a corner and stepped into the dungeon. The executioner was whistling and swinging his axe idly because at the moment he had nothing to do. In spite of his business, he really seemed to be a very pleasant man. "The king says you must chop off my head," said Bartholomew. "Oh, I'd hate to do that," said the executioner, looking at him with a friendly smile. "You seem like such a nice boy." "Well, the king says you have to," said Bartholomew, "so please get it over with." "All right," sighed the executioner, "but first you've got to take off your hat." "Why?" asked Bartholomew. "I don't know," said the executioner, "but it's one of the rules. I can't execute anyone with his hat on." "All right," said Bartholomew, "you take it off for me." The executioner leaned across the chopping block and flipped off Bartholomew's hat. "What's this?" he gasped, blinking through the holes in his mask. Another hat sat on Bartholomew's head. He flipped off this one, then another one. "Fiddlesticks!" grunted the executioner, throwing his axe on the floor. "I can't execute you at all." And he shook hands with Bartholomew and sent him back upstairs to the king. The king had been taking a nap on the throne. "What are you doing back here?" he said to Bartholomew, angry at being awakened. "I'm sorry, Your Majesty," explained Bartholomew. "My head can't come off with my hat on. It's against the rules." "So it can't," said the king, leaning back wearily. "Now how many hats does this make altogether?" "The executioner knocked off 13, and I left 178 more on the dungeon steps," answered Bartholomew. 346 hats, mumbled Sir Aliarch from behind his scroll. "Uncle Derwin?" yawned the Grand Duke Wilfred. "Uncle Derwin?" "I suppose I'll have to do away with him. Send him up to the highest turret, and I, in person, will push him off." "Wilfred, I'm surprised at you," said the king, "but I guess it's a good idea." So the king and the Grand Duke led Bartholomew Cubbins toward the highest turret. Up and up and up the turret stairs he climbed behind them. "This is my very last chance," thought Bartholomew. He snatched off his hat. 347, he snatched off another. He pulled and tore and he flung them behind him. 398, 399, and his arms ached from pulling off hats, but still the hats came off. Bartholomew climbed on. 448, 449, 450, counted Sir Aliarch, puffing up the stairs behind him. Suddenly, Sir Aliarch stopped. He looked. He took off his triangular spectacles and he wiped them on his sleeve, and then again he looked. The hats began to change. Hats 451 had not one but two feathers. Hat 452 had three, and 453 had a little and a red jewel. Each new hat was fancier than the hat just before. "Your Majesty," my idea of a fancy hat. Your Majesty, cried out Sir Aliarch, but the king and the Grand Duke were far up where they couldn't hear. They had already reached the top of the highest turret. Bartholomew was following just behind. "Step right out here and get on that wall," snapped the Duke, "Grand Wilfred. I can't wait to push you off." Ah, look how pretty his hat is. I know you can't really see it. Well, maybe if I turn. Hold on. Alright. Look how pretty Bartholomew's hat is. Can you see that? I have no idea if you can see that. Okay. But when Bartholomew had stepped up on the wall, scroll down, they gasped in amazement. He was wearing the most beautiful hat that had ever been seen in the kingdom of Did. It had a ruby larger than the king himself had ever owned. It had ostrich plumes, and cockatoo plumes, and mockingbird plumes, and paradise plumes. Besides such a hat, even the king's crown seemed like nothing. The Grand Duke Wilfred took a step forward. Bartholomew thought his end had come at last. "Wait!" shouted the king. He could not take his eyes off that magnificent hat. "I won't wait," the Grand Duke talked back to the king. "I'm going to push him off now. That new big hat makes me madder than ever." And he flung out his arms to push Bartholomew off. But the king was quicker than Wilfred. He grabbed him by his back by the fine lace collar. "This is to teach you," His Majesty said sternly, "that Grand Dukes never talk back to their king." And he turned to the Grand Duke Wilfred over on his knee and he spanked him soundly, right on the seat of his royal silk pants. "And now," smiled the king, lifting Bartholomew down from the wall, "it would be nice if you would sell me that wonderful hat." 498, 499, broke in the voice of Sir Aliarch, who had just arrived at the top of the steps, "and that," he pointed to the hat on Bartholomew's head, "makes exactly 500. 500! exclaimed the king. "Will you sell it for 500 pieces of gold?" "Anything you say, sire," answered Bartholomew. "You see, I've never sold one before." The king's hand trembled with joy as he reached for the hat. Slowly, slowly, Bartholomew felt the weight of the great hat lifting off from his head. Probably look horrible. He held his breath. Then suddenly he felt the cool evening breezes blow through his hair. His face broke into a happy smile. The head of Bartholomew Cubbins was there.